Job hunting in 2025 as a new grad has been extremely difficult, especially if you're looking in tech. But I wanted to share my background, my story, and the process of how I was able to land a job within 4 months of graduating from my computer science degree as a software developer. Welcome to the channel. My name is Lucas, and this is the story of how I landed a job as a software developer as a new grad in 2025. I attended the University of British Columbia for a 4-year degree, and during that time, I also did one co-op that spanned 2 terms, 8 months total. I would say that both my degree and my co-op experience were crucial in landing a job as a software developer. So for those of you that are, let's say, doing a boot camp, don't be disheartened. The biggest advice I could give you guys, as well as everyone else, is to find internships or get some type of co-op experience, because that will bolster your resume. You don't want to be applying to jobs without any experience, because it's just a very competitive market right now. So everyone is going to have some sort of experience related to the job that they're applying to. Right now, you don't have to have 2 years plus of co-op experience to stand out and land a job. It might be easier to get interviews, but it is still doable if you apply some of the practical tips that I'm about to give you. So tip number 1, if you don't have any co-op experience and you're even trying to look for your first co-op, is you need to build projects. And it's still relevant when you're looking for full-time work. So with the position that I applied to, it was a full stack developer position. My co-op experience was catered towards back-end development. And so I was missing a little bit of that front-end component. But throughout my degree, I had built a lot of different full stack projects that incorporated both the front end and the back end, as well as done some freelance work, right? So in that way, I'm also building experience that's not necessarily through an internship or through a co-op. And when I was interviewing with the tech lead for my team, he was saying the thing that stood out on my resume, and the reason why they brought me in for an interview wasn't necessarily because I had back-end experience, but it's because the projects that I had listed on my resume were all full stack, right? So yes, having co-op and internships will definitely help and maybe make you stand out a bit more. But if you focus on projects that are well built, well thought out of, they're on your GitHub, right? And they're easy to access with photos, maybe a README, as well as maybe a video of how it's used, will help immensely. And that's some things that I did for myself. Practical tip number 2, include metrics in your resumes. Please do not, I repeat, do not have something generic like developed APIs, okay? That gives the employer or whoever is reading your resume zero information on what you actually did, and also doesn't give any information on how you contributed to the team in any capacity, right? And that's really key. Your employer or whoever is reading your resume wants to see the impact that you had during your time at your co-op, your internships, or even with any personal projects or freelance work that you did. For me, I follow the STAR method to build out my bullet points, right? For those of you guys that don't know what STAR is, it stands for situation, task, action, and result. And it's typically used in behavioral questions, but it can be applied to your resume as well. And an example of what I would write would be something like built scalable RESTful APIs, using maybe X technology if I needed to list the technology. And then I would say something along the lines of increased API responsiveness by 20% with a 99.9% uptime. I'm adding this in post-edit because I realized that the examples that I gave, they weren't exactly following the STAR method to the T. And you don't have to follow the STAR method to the T, but I wanted to give better examples for you guys here. And you'll also see it on my resume too, which I'll link in either the comments or the description. But something along the lines of face performance challenges in migration tools. So that's the situation. The task would be conducted in-depth code analysis. And then the action would be identified bottlenecks and added optimizations. And then the result would be improved migration tool performance by 30%. That's something that's more aligned with STAR. But again, you can see exactly what I wrote in my resume in the comments or in the description below. Tip number 3, apply to a lot of jobs as a new grad. Now, I didn't apply to everything, but what I mean apply is if you're going to pick a specific industry. So I had 3 in mind. I wanted to work in either the energy sector, security, or fintech, right? But I applied to hundreds of jobs throughout the 4 months within those 3 industries, right? So it's not a matter of just having enough experience or having a nice resume, but you can also see this as a numbers game, right? The more jobs you apply, the more bets you're placing on yourself to land an interview. And in all honesty, doing a lot of interviews helped me to be prepared, more so than just preparing blindly on my own and not knowing what to expect and not having any interviewing experience. Within the 4-month period, so between May to around September, I interviewed with 7 different companies. And this is not including multiple rounds of interviews that I would go through with some of these companies. Average was about 100 jobs each month. So I applied to about 400 jobs total over the 4-month period. But there would always be questions that I hadn't thought of or I hadn't prepared for when I would come to these interviews. And I would always add these questions that I hadn't encountered onto my set of behavioral questions that I would now practice. And that helped immensely. Now, if you're really good at giving answers off the cuff and in the moment, awesome, you don't need to worry about it. And I would say for the most part, I'm also decent at that too. But when you come well prepared and have a good answer to a question they're asking, it is going to impress your employer. Tip number 4. Now, this is specifically for software developers, software engineering positions, but you don't want to just practice your behavioral and you don't want to just practice LeetCode, your data structures and algorithms. You also need to know some of the technical concepts behind the development that a company is going to be doing. What I mean by that is if you're applying for a backend position, you should know how to build APIs and also how to make APIs secure, right? For example, you might use tokens that a client has, it'll send it to the server and verify that the client is actually who they say they are. Some other examples, maybe the position you're applying for is using Java and they want to assess your foundational knowledge of Java. And this is a real example in an interview that I encountered where they asked me, hey, like, we use Java, can you explain what the SDK is and what the JRE is, right? And so having a good answer to that question or having some basic idea of it will help you stand out during the interviewing process. Tip number 5, don't be discouraged. There are going to be people that are going to land a job sooner, that are going to land a job much later than everyone else, but focus on your own journey, focus on the path ahead. Don't focus on the obstacles, don't focus on what other people are able to achieve, focus on yourself. Continue following all of the day-to-day actions that you need to do in order to succeed, right? So for me, that was every single day, I would do some form of behavioral review, some form of LeetCode review or answering a new question. And then at a minimum, I would apply to 2 jobs a day. You know, some days they vary where I'll encounter 15, 20 plus new jobs that I can apply to. Other days, there might only be 2 new jobs that I can apply to. I'm adding this little edit here, but for tip number 5 with day-to-day actions. So I didn't apply to jobs every single day. I just want to clarify that. I still gave myself at least 1 day a week, typically on a Sunday, where I didn't do anything because rest is still an important part of the process and you're going to get burnt out. So again, don't do it every day, incorporate rest into your routine, but be consistent with the actions that you do on a week-to-week basis. Tip number 6 would be, don't just apply to jobs that have been posted within the last 24 hours. It's actually okay for you to apply to jobs that might have something like 400 candidates that have applied, because not all 400 candidates are qualified to even interview nor work in that position. And so there were a couple of times with some of the companies that I applied to where I noticed that the posting had been up for a week or 2 already and there were, 300, 400 plus applicants, but I still applied anyways and I was able to get interviews, right? So don't give up, continue to apply to job postings even if they're not within a 24-hour period posting. Tip number 8, in terms of job hunting and finding jobs, I would use both a mix of LinkedIn and Indeed.com. It can be tempting to use the easy apply button on LinkedIn, and I would say my response rate from that has been quite low. It might be better for you to just apply directly on site if the company has a job posting that you can apply to. If they don't, then go through LinkedIn. And then on the flip side too, use Indeed.com. That one's pretty good too. Again, I would filter by the last 24 hours and I would search for new jobs that way. And then if it was a day where there weren't a lot of new jobs, I would go and apply to jobs that had been up for maybe like a week or two and apply to some of those. Thanks for watching. I'm going to end the video here, but I will probably be posting once a week if you guys want to tune in at a minimum. And I don't have all of the details figured out about my YouTube channel. Really what I'm trying to do is just throw myself into the deep end and figure it out as I go. I have some things in mind, but I spent so much time thinking about what I want to do for my YouTube channel that I'm at a point where I just want to post and get it done. You know, like I just need to take my first step. So I encourage all of you guys, take your first step, be consistent with all the day-to-day actions you need to do, and hopefully you'll be able to find something soon.